Milk Jam Juice!
Hi YouTube, it's me, Milk Jam Juice, and today, I know it's been an incredibly long time, but I would like to talk to y'all about Witcher School. I have known about Witcher School since about 2016, I just never went until 2019. In short, this is because my previous job in Japan never would have let me have enough time off to go. So now that I'm in my current job and I was able to take 5 days off, I was able to experience this. So what is Witcher School? Witcher School is a LARP experience, 18 plus. They're very specific about that. They on the Facebook page are like, it's an adventure for adults. So they're a LARP based out of Southwest Poland, and I went there for several days to go experience this LARP. You get to stay at one of 2 castles, at least that's how it is now. It seems that one of the castles is smaller, one of the castles is a little bit larger. The one I went to was the larger castle. Oh my god, I can't even pronounce it right. It's Mochna Castle? I don't... Please correct me in the comments, because I know I'm not pronouncing that right. Anyway, it was a great time. I made some notes on my phone, and I just want to go through these to kind of keep myself on track here to really convey what I want to say about this experience. So here we go. So I'm a first-time LARPer. I'd never LARPed before. I'd always sort of had an interest in it, but I really didn't know where to start, and I didn't have any local friends, at least in Japan, that were into LARPing because it's not a big thing there. So it was something that I'd always sort of pushed the sidelines and never really thought about until I went to Witcher School. And it's really interesting to say this, but like I never had such an experience before. I had such a good time. I already have tickets. I'm going back in September. It was great. So let's talk a little bit like why it's great. First, I want to talk about logistics of Witcher School. So first, pricing. I believe the pricing is either in zloty or euros, and it rounds out to about 500-ish US dollars. So you may be wondering, what do I get with this ticket? So you get admission to the game, you get room and board. So that's Thursday night, Friday night, Friday night, and Saturday night. Yeah, so it's 3 nights, and you get Thursday. The game starts Thursday evening, runs through Friday, Saturday, and then it says it's over the midnight of Saturday. However, in our experience, I think it ran over a couple hours. I think we were done around 3:30 a.m. on Sunday, maybe? We didn't have watches, so that's just my assumption. And you get 3 meals a day, at least that's what we had at our castle. We got 3 meals a day catered, and you get a base costume kit. So what came in my kit and everyone else's kit was a plain gambeson to wear, a plain shirt to go under that, plain, sort of peasant pants to go under that. You get a glass water bottle. I highly recommend, if you have like an immersive water bottle that you use for LARP, bring that, just because the glass bottles are nice that they provide for you, but they break. I broke mine because I am a klutz. I had it strapped on me, and then I was like jumping over like a wall, and it smashed against the corner, and I was like, oh, why didn't I think of this? It's smashed now. I replaced it I paid for replacement. I think it was like $2. It's not a big deal. But I did go ahead for my next run. I ordered a water skin because they don't break. So that's one thing to know. They also give you a character sheet. Let me show you mine. They email it to you first, but this is the physical character sheet that comes in the little bag they give you when you check in. And what else did you get? So yeah, we got the admission, the board, the 3 meals a day, the base costume, and all of the wonderful NPCs and monsters that you will interact with. So in my opinion, I think it's $500 for such a great experience is a very good deal. Next, I want to talk about the sign-up sheet. So that's a little bit having to do with the character sheet. So after you buy the Witcher School tickets, they will contact you by email. And the email will be talking about all the necessities that you need to bring and that you need to prepare for. First, they'll talk about physical things that you need to bring. So the first thing is boots. They need you to bring boots because obviously, everybody has unique shoe sizes, so they can't prepare you with that. They recommend possibly bringing gloves. I actually forgot to buy gloves until the last minute, so I got some like leather gloves to go there. I found them pretty useful. When we were there in April, I would say where we were in Poland is about the same weather as Detroit where I am now. They were having really good weather when I went there, so it was actually colder in Detroit at that specific time. However, I think that we had unusually warm weather for the season, so we were really lucky. We had a very sunny weekend, so I didn't need the gloves out of necessity, but like at night it got really cold, so they were nice to have at night. And so, an NPC, I picked up some bad habits from an NPC that required gloves, so there's also that too. The gloves became part of my adventure. I will not spoil this. Maybe you'll have to meet my season 2 character and ask her about that. And okay, so those are the things that you would bring. Then there's character creation. So you, of course, can create your own character. That's totally fine. They ask that you do so and send it into their staff for approval first to make sure that it's just, immersive with the universe. Same goes for costume. If you want to bring your own like kit, they also ask that you please bring like a photo or a sketch or something of what you're going to be wearing so that they can approve of it, prior to, or ask that you make any adjustments. In my case, I had no idea what to do, so I asked that they just create my character for me because 1, I kind of wanted a surprise, and 2, I had never done character creation before, and I was a little bit nervous that I would mess it up, and I didn't think I was very good at it, so it was a nice help for somebody who had done this for the first time. So for the character creation, you give them all of the character information. They usually give you a deadline. You email them back. There's a survey that they send you, and you type in things about your character. There's a couple things that I found that were really nice that they did. There were like exception columns that you could type out, and they said if there's anything that you don't want factored into your character story, please write it down, because they mentioned that, anybody who's familiar with the Witcher universe would know it's a harsh environment. So they're like, people get murdered, raped, killed, people starve to death, child murder, it's not a great place. So if you don't want something to be associated with that character or in their backstory, write it down for them and just let them know, and they will accommodate you. Next, on the survey that they send you, because they are catering food for you, they do ask, do you have any dietary restrictions? So I think it was like a multi-choice question that they gave me, and they had choices like gluten-free, dairy, lactose intolerant, I think was the term. So it wasn't necessarily dairy-free, but lactose intolerant, vegetarian, vegan, and then there was like an other column. And what they did there, I was wondering how that was going to be, compensated for, because I had to put in, lactose intolerant for mine. And so when you go and you get the food, it's sort of buffet style, but they have little signs next to each type of food, and it will say this is vegetarian, or this is vegan, or this is gluten-free, or this is, dairy-free, or whatever. So I thought that they were really good about doing that. I gotta say, food-wise, I was actually impressed. I was thinking that it was just going to be like bread trenchers and gruel the entire weekend, because it's, it's Witcher school, everybody's tough and they don't have a lot of money going around. But the food was out there. Now, granted, I'm a sort of a human dumpster and will eat anything, but I really liked it. There was one, we had like venison pierogies. Oh, it was so good. And there was lots of like little sweets to eat. They had like cream puffs sometime. Like the last day there, they had cream puffs in the morning. It was so good. And so there was a variety of pretty much any kind of food you wanted. There were like several proteins, several sides, the little dessert section, and they had like 3 coolers that were made immersive of water and like 2 types of juices that you could have. They also had a functional tavern. So during a certain time of day, until it was like late afternoon until like 3 a.m., they actually had staff working the tavern, so you could use real world money and buy beer, wine, etc. So we had a lot of players buying each other ale, for example. I'm not an ale/beer person, but I did drink it to try to be more immersive in the universe. So there was that, and let's see. Yes, and costume bits and other little bits that you need to buy. I would like to tell you an anecdotal story of mine. I feel the story is important It's very important. So I forgot that I had to bring boots until a few weeks before I actually left for Poland. This was stupid on my account because I just ignored the survey, and I was checking through it again, and I realized, oh my God, I don't have boots. And the boots, the problem is the boots you have should be immersive. So you don't want boots with zippers on them or like modern looking buckles, etc. So I was in a bit of a problematic area, rock and a hard place. So I went to a regular shoe store and just tried to see what I could find. I hit the jackpot with the most ridiculous looking shoes. I would like to post a picture here of this, so please look at my ridiculous shoes. Yes, so they are over the knee velvet blue shoes. The only fastening on them was a tie at the top. And I thought, going into it, as I bought those boots, I knew in the Witcher universe, nobody really has blue boots. There's gotta be a weird reason for it. And I thought, okay, so I'm gonna have to, roll this into my character, and I'm going to have to compensate for this because these are going to stick out. This is going to be a thing. My character's gonna get shit for it. Like, I know this. But I thought that was actually gonna be kind of funny. And it was funny because I did play the game with those boots, and other player characters are like, where'd you get those? And my excuse for my character was she was a widow, and that was like the last big gift that her husband had bought her. So they were a keepsake from her dead husband. However, I was assigned the nickname of Fancy Boots by the NPCs. And it was actually funny because like some of the masters they took the piss out. Like, it's fine because I knew it was going to be a thing. So they're like, oh my God, oh, Fancy Boots, da da da, oh, Fancy Boots, da da da. And I remember the sword fighting teacher. I loved it, and I loved it so much when he said, you have such fancy boots. Why does your footwork suck? Make it match. I loved it. So do be aware, if you are in that universe, you are in that universe. So if you have something that seems a little bit more modern, it's going to be addressed. However, I enjoyed that very much. It was a very positive experience. Moving on. What have I got listed next? Okay. So the character sheet. Here is one piece of criticism that I would give towards the organization of Witcher School is that we didn't get character sheets and like our completed character sheets mailed to us until like, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks before the event. It wasn't long. So if I were to give critique, I would say please make it so that we get the character sheets a little bit earlier, especially if our character's being written by the organization. Like, we don't really know. I think it would have been a little bit easier to have gotten into character if we had a little bit more time with the character sheets. So that would be my one criticism, that we did get them in sort of the last minute. But as far as I know right now, 5 Elements is revamping their general format for all the character sheets, so that may not even be an issue anymore. So I'm not sure. Okay, so here's the process. So you fly to a smaller airport in Poland. It's called, and I will mess this up, Wrocław Airport. It's tiny. It's got about 7 gates, I think, but I was able to get there pretty quickly. So I went from Detroit to Paris. I had like a 45-minute layover in Paris and then hopped over to Wrocław. No problem. Maybe it's a 10-hour trip in total. So for me, like, I'm used to flying back and forth from Atlanta to Tokyo, and that's like 14 hours on the shorter end. So this to Poland was no problem for me, and I personally would recommend, don't get the most economy of seats. I would say get the seat that gets the checked bag with you. That way, if you're bringing a kit, you've got the larger suitcase to deal with that, and you don't have to put it in a carry-on. That's just my advice, though, because that's what I did. Then there's a whole, once again, physical logistics situation. So first, sleeping. I think I mentioned before, this is my 3rd or 4th recording of this so far. You're gonna be, depending on the ticket that you bought, there's different levels of tickets. So there's a lower ticket where you'll be in a room between 3 and 5 people in the same room. Or it can be 2 people, or you might get a single room. Or in the castle that we were in, there was like a large historic apartment that you could, buy into I think it has 5 people that can go in it, something like that. So it's a lot like a hostel. It's a little, I didn't find it terribly cramped actually. There were 4 people in my room. What did surprise me, and this is my own fault because I didn't ask, I just assumed that the rooms and the bathrooms and the shower rooms were gender segregated. They are not. So that really took me by surprise, my first playthrough. And it really only concerned me because if I were to go to an event like this in the States, I would genuinely be concerned about that, because at least like I've been to several anime conventions, etc. here in the States, and there are creepers. And so like there are sometimes dangerous people who go to those events. And so that's why I got a little uncomfortable when we got the notifications of the room situation. Of course, another critique that I would add is we didn't get the room assignments until the day that I flew out. So there's that. No, I don't think that's too big of a problem, but it's just that it was a bit of a surprise to me. However, we compensated, it was fine. So somebody had posted on Facebook, they're like, oh, hey, I'd like to switch rooms. And I said, oh, well, I'll switch rooms with you. And apparently he got a lot of people asking him to switch rooms, and he asked me, oh, what's your reason? And I said, well, you know, I really didn't expect that I was going to be put in a room where it was like 3 other guys, and I didn't know them, so I was just a little bit nervous for that. And he had like 1 more woman in his room, and I was like, I know it sounds weird, but like, can I switch places with you? Because there's at least 1 other woman in my room, and it would make me feel less awkward. Looking back now, that wasn't even necessary, and I really want to address this. So, like I mentioned about a minute before, there are dangerous, creepy people who go to like conventions in the States. I did not see this in Witcher School at all. Didn't see it. So I don't know why that occurred. Maybe creepy people just don't go to Witcher School. I'm not sure what it is. But the thing is, like, I'm 100% sure, like, if someone like that were to enter into the school, the staff would catch it right away and deal with it. Because I felt that the staff were extremely accommodating to everyone who was playing in the game. So I was in a room of 4 people, 2 guys, 2 women, and I didn't have any trouble. Like, we didn't even lock our rooms. We left our stuff out. Like, nothing was missing. Nobody had touched my stuff. So, and that there was mutual respect there. So the level of respect between each player and all the NPCs was very high. And I really, really liked that. And I actually can't state enough how important that was to me, and how much, like, I was so happy to have seen that everybody had such high respect for each other that there wasn't any trouble. Because that goes on to the bathrooms also, and the shower rooms also are not segregated. But once again, like, after the first day of playing with everybody, like, I knew that's not going to be a problem. I don't see any creepers. It's not weird. So I just like to let you guys know in the video that is what I experienced, but I didn't really see it as a problem. So, you know, it is what it is. And for each room, you have a sign that goes on the door, and it can say in-game, off-game. So you can sleep in-game if you want. So if your sign says in-game, anything can come busting through your door at night. And it happened to other players. I put my sign off-game because I need my sleep. But no, if you put the sign as in-game, stuff may just happen. So that's a thing. Be aware of that. And this is sort of another thing that I do want to talk about 5 Elements being very accommodating. So they also, on the survey that you filled out before going into the game, they asked you about any medical conditions that might need to be addressed in the game. I personally wrote, I have medication that I take that knocks me out at night. And so, like, if something were to jump in my room in the middle of the game, I wouldn't be 100% like conscious about it. So I'd be really kind of like really groggy. And I really, 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 because of my condition, I need my sleep. If I don't get my sleep, I am not okay. So I just want to put that out there, that I actually put that into my character sheet, and you can sleep as much as you want to at Witcher School. You won't want to, though, because you're having a good time and you want to be awake to have the events. However, for your health, if you're not feeling well, you can sleep in. I actually did. The very last day, I slept through morning warm-ups and breakfast because I was so exhausted. I did get up for the first lesson of the day, but, you know, I didn't have any instructors, like, or the masters, like, giving me any crap for it, because, like, I don't know, they were just decent about it, you know? So I thought it was really nice. Now granted, like if you do skip things in the school, like in character, the masters may give you shit for it. They, you know, that's a thing. It would happen in that universe, right? Yes. Okay, so next, so I mentioned some lessons, but before we get to the lessons, I want to talk about the workshops that we had before the game session started. So the workshops, we're talking about certain game mechanics. One of them was signs. So if you are familiar with the Witcher series, Witchers can cast signs, which is a very weak form of magic. There are several different kinds of signs. The signs that we mostly worked with were Quen, Ard, Igni, and Axii. Oh yeah, Irden too. And that was about, I mean, that's most of them anyway, but that's about all. So there was a workshop in which they told us how to help the signs happen. So they talked about, okay, Quen, you know, is a defense sign. So if somebody casts Quen and you're trying to hit them, you know, the blow may not land, you know. Or Igni cannot be really cast much in game because pyrotechnics, that takes staff, you know. So some of the main signs that we were working with, one was Ard. So they just talked about the mechanics of how Ard would work in the game. Also how Irden might work in the game and how Axii might work in the game. I'll talk about that a little bit more in the lesson section. Also for the workshops, they did consent and safety workshops. So I was once again really happy that they did this. The first one, safety, they talked about general safety, things like, you know, these are fake weapons, but please don't slap anybody too hard because you still can hurt somebody. You know, you may be excited or, you know, emotionally excited by the monsters, but you know, please remember there's a person in that costume, so don't kick him in the face, you know, things like that. Or when you're holding a torch, do not fight. So because you're holding a torch and you're going to light something on fire, you know, make sure that, and also, you know, the torches are super heavy, don't hit anybody with a torch by accident, just keep it safe, you know. And then they talked about consent. So there were different situations. They said, you know, the Witcher School is a contact LARP, so people will be touching and hitting you. If you are not okay with those situations, they have a consent system. So green means the situation's okay and it's okay to escalate. Yellow would be, let's keep this situation at this level, let's not escalate any further. Red being, I'm uncomfortable, we need to stop now. Yeah, so those were the three safe words: green, yellow, red. And I feel like, you know, when properly used, I think that's a good system. So although now that I think about it, I don't know if I actually saw anybody actively using this system. Personally, I didn't need to, although there were a couple times where I probably should have said green to get like a little bit more intense an experience. But also this was mentioned on the Facebook group later on after my episode, which was an interesting mention. Somebody had mentioned, well, maybe I should have said green more in these situations. And one of the people who was working as an NPC commented back on the Facebook post saying, well, I mean, you know, I totally respect that. I think, you know, if you say green to intensify the experience would be good. However, you do need to, remember that consent is a two-way street. So if your player character is okay with something, you also need to make sure that your NPC is also okay with enacting something like that. So even if the player character may want something a little bit more intense, they have to, you know, also realize that the NPC needs to also be comfortable in that situation too, which I felt was a very interesting comment, but I was also very like, I felt good reading that, and I was like, oh, that's super decent of them. I quite like that. So, all right, I talked about workshops and consent. So let's actually talk about the game. So in the game itself, this also comes through the survey. They ask you, in the survey, they go through a couple different activities. They talk about science class, alchemy, monster knowledge, blacksmithing, leatherworking, things like that. And you have like a 1 to 5 interest, like 1 not interested, 5 most interested. And based on those answers, the workshops or the lessons are decided. So we did 4 lessons a day. So what did we do? I'm trying to remember what we did. Our first class was signs, and then it was axe throwing, then alchemy, then archery, and then the second day we had survival, and gosh, what else did we do? Survival, we did monster knowledge, we did actual sword fighting, and we did something else, and I actually can't remember what it was. Oh yes, hunting. That's what it was. Oh, the hunting class was very good. But yeah, so depending on that survey, the lessons might change because I've seen like blacksmithing pictures from some of the older Witcher schools. We didn't have blacksmithing in our episode, I'm assuming because fewer people had voted for that. But that's just my assumption. You know, I'm not exactly sure how the lessons are done, but that's just my assumption. So yeah, all of those lessons were what we did. And one interesting thing, you may have noticed that I'm holding the medallion. So you do get a medallion actually to take home sort of as a keepsake. This is like a 3D printed one, I think. So if you can see, I'm gonna get real closer. Cat school. So when we were in our science class, we got to choose which school we're going to be in. Our first two choices were wolf school or cat school. Once again, I can't speak to other episodes on what choices they had. So for the beginner, the adepts witchers, we had this choice. So I chose cat school for various character reasons. However, that's not to say that other schools were not present. I met witchers from Viper School, Bear School. Where else? I don't know if I met any from Griffin School, but definitely I did see Vipers and Bears. So, and my character may be looking into changing to a different school next year. We will have to see. So I thought that was kind of cool that we got to choose the initial school that we went into. And the castle that we were staying at in-game was Care Martyr, which is the base for cat school. So we were sort of in the cat school, were like home team during that episode. So yes. Okay, so now I'm going to just go into my chronological experience. So when we got there, I want to say Thursday afternoon. We ate lunch before, so we got on. Let's roll it back a little bit. I woke up on Thursday. I left my hotel, and we were meeting up at the airport. So I met them at noon at the airport, and they had. You can't miss them. The airport's tiny, and it's a bunch of LARPers with Witcher stuff. They're very hard to miss. So you go, and I immediately started talking to people. Everybody was super nice. I cannot stress enough how good this was socially. I met a lot of friends, like long-term friends, and I was actually so happy to meet so many new people. It was very good. We had to sign some waivers talking about, like, you know, if you get injured, you can't sue the company, et cetera, and then give those waivers in. And then they bus you from the airport to the castle because there is no transportation that goes to that castle. So that's pretty important. The bus both ways cost 20 euros, which I believe is very reasonable. The bus ride was about an hour and a half. I want to say hour and a half. I wasn't really paying attention because I was like too busy talking to everybody and sort of getting to know everybody. I had a really good time. We got to the castle and we checked into our rooms. We put our stuff in our rooms. Then we started checking into the game. That's when we got our bags, you know, full of other goodies. There was a LARP store open in one of the rooms before the game started. I bought a suede tunic for funsies. Hopefully I can use that later on. It's some LARP experience. I don't know. I just liked it. And so you could have bought like weapons, like foam weapons, different like garb, cloaks, hoods, tunics, corsets, all kinds of stuff. And I want to say I went and I got dressed into my kit and we had lunch before the game started. And the game started, I just want to say, at sundown. So the sun went down at that time about 8 o'clock. So that's when we started. And I was an adept. I was a new Witcher. So in this game, the adepts have some mutagens, but not completely to the fact they are pre-trial of the grasses, so that's important to know. And also, we were split into subgroups, so I think this was a really good way to manage all of the players in the game, because there were about 150 players, I want to say. And we were split into groups of 10 or so. I was in the Ravens group, so like each group had a different Master Witcher, and our Master was Sebastian. It was supposed to be Vesemir, but the guy who was playing him, I think he had an injury before the game. So like this was played through. They're like, oh, this happened to Vesemir, so blah 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 blah. This is Bastion. He's gonna be your Master. Just now, this is what happens. You don't know what happened to Vesemir. He's gone. My character has no idea what happened to Vesemir. So we had Bastion as our Witcher Master, and he brought us into the castle, and he sat us down at the tavern and was talking to us. He's like, okay, you know, I'm a bit of a chill master. I'm down with the cool kids. He didn't really say that, but you know, that was sort of the effect of what he was saying. You know, I thought it was really interesting because each master had a very different personality. They all belonged to different Witcher schools. And immediately another master marched up the stairs, and starts yelling at our master, and I was like, oh my gosh, oh she's scary, oh she's a bit scary. In which I do want to touch on was sort of emotions in this. The NPCs do a damn good job at being characters, and the monsters do an even damner good job. I know, that's not how you're supposed to say it in English, but I'm a rebel. Anyway, but like, hats off to the monster crew. Oh my god, you guys, you're amazing. But anyway, the roles that the NPCs and the monsters played were very well fulfilled. So I met up with a couple of the different witchers that had passed the trials, and my character had a very specific purpose. Just a small hint, she's after some vampires, and so I was asking around. That was sort of my goal, was to like get after some vampires. So I was running around the school trying to ask different witchers, and so like I became like witcher buddies with a couple from my group. Some of the newer guys from my group, we became like a posse. And so, but like I was really tired though, so I was still kind of jet lagged. So I went to bed the first night, and we woke up. We woke up in the witcheriest way possible, with the masters running down the hallway screaming at us to get up. So that's what one does. And I think it was like we woke up 7:30, I'm not quite sure. So we went out for the morning warm up, and then we had breakfast, and then the lessons started. So yeah, signs lessons I think is worth mentioning. So that's actually where we chose our witcher schools, and we practiced the signs for real. So the first sign we practiced was Quen, and that's for defense. Then we practiced Ard. So let me talk about this. With their effects group, it was great. So with Ard, we were in a line, and they had a training dummy, and we were just, trying to... Ard. We were trying to figure out how to do the Ard, and the master gave us a very specific way to do it, and we started practicing. And he's like, okay, who wants to come up to the dummy and knock him over? And various people volunteered. And when they did it, the dummy was starting to move, and like leaves around the area were starting to kick up and move. And I was like, I don't know how they're doing this, but it is good, because I didn't see anybody. I was looking around. I was trying to see if there was some kind of, probably a line attached to all these things, but I just wasn't sure where it was. And so I was like, ooh, this is good. And eventually we were knocking the dummy clear over. And then our instructor was like, okay, now it's time to learn Igni. So we go over this huge pile of like broken branches and stuff, and they're like, okay, do Igni. And the whole thing like erupted in fire. And I was like, oh my gosh, guys, they did pyrotechnics, and I do love it. And I also want to mention Ard was a really interesting sign throughout the game, because all of the characters reacted to it, which made it very real. So I had one buddy in the Ravens group in particular who was very good with Ard. And it was really, he used it in very unexpected situations, and all of the characters reacted to it instantly. So it was such a really, really good experience to see the signs in good play there. So that really enhanced the experience. And there were various other lessons. Signs was something I really wanted to mention. Another thing I actually want to mention was alchemy. So alchemy was really interesting in the fact that you are brewing potions out of actual real-world ingredients with Witcher universe names, which I loved. And you have to brew potions, and like we had a special alchemy class. Once again, I'm not going to spoiler what happened in our alchemy class, but it was a little bit sabotaged. That's all I'm gonna say. So it made alchemy a little bit challenging for my character, but she still loved it. But I do want to highlight how we were making it. So we had like these different ingredients. We had it in the mortar and pestle, like grinding everything up, putting it into a pot, boiling everything, running it through a filter, and adding the dwarven spirit, which is vodka. So there was a lot of alcohol flowing around this game, and because those potions were alcoholic, which was nice sometimes, especially Swallow, the stamina regenerating potion. Excuse me, not stamina, health regenerating potion. A lot of Swallow going around. Unfortunately, my Swallows were a little bit too sweet, and everybody made fun of my Swallows, and I was a little bit sad, but that's fine. It's fine. We'll get it right next time. It's fine. So there was that. I'm trying to think if there was any other the classes that really stood out with like Witcher mechanics, and those were the other one was Monster Knowledge, because we had a special quest for that one, and that was a fun time. But I do want to get into, like I mentioned, emotions earlier. everything is make-believe at this event, but the fear that I felt, the anxiety that I felt in some situations was super real. So on the night of the first full day, you go on a hunt, and the definition of that hunt is to go cull monsters around the area. There were many unexpected things that happened, which I found was very exciting. Once again, I'm not going to spoil this, but we encountered many types of monsters. Some of them could be defeated, some of them could not be defeated, some of them we were not supposed to kill, which made the task a lot more challenging. So when we ran into foglets in the forest, me being nervous was very real. I knew, I was like, that's just a chick in a suit. But at the same time, I was like, oh no, don't break battle formation. Make sure you got your sword correctly. Make sure you hit the monster in the right place. Get the foglets down. And they had like these smoke bombs to emulate the fog and practically blind everyone, which was pretty great because in the game, that's what happens. So like once again, I really handed off to the 5 Elements crew. Y'all nailed it. And the monster costumes were amazing. So we ran into ghouls, pretty simple monster. We ran into some foglets, we ran into a fiend, we ran into a striga, we ran into earth elemental. What else did we run into? There were hints of a drowner somewhere. I never saw the drowner, but I feel like a drowner was there. I saw drowner guts by the water, so something had happened, not sure. But yeah, so those were sort of the monsters that we ran into, and once again, all of the monster costumes were pretty good. Like I really liked the fiend costume, loved it, and I was wondering, I was like, how in the world is only one person in that thing? It is huge. So I found that the whole, I really love the monsters. I can't state enough how much I love those things. And especially the striga. The striga for not killing me, thank you. You're the best. So there's also injuries, because injuries real and imagined. So my character basically got her left part of her face bitten off from a monster, yay. And if something like that happens for your character, they have like a little makeup area that you can go to get your wounds painted on, which I found was very cool. So I did that. So some of the later pictures you may see of me that I post for my character have these huge marks on her face because she was doing some dumb shit and she got in trouble with the monsters. Bad idea. And yeah, I want to say, and there's so many things I want to mention this, and I feel like we're really running long on this video, but there's so many things I want to talk about that we had such a good time with. I love the monsters, I love the NPCs, I loved the environment, the scenarios. It was all really well done. Once again, one of the tasks I had to do was to jump into the lair of a monster while the rest of my team was distracting my character, or distracting the monster. And I had to go in there, fetch some things and get the hell out before I got killed. So that was actually some actual anxiety. I remember standing, we were getting ready to say, give the signal for everybody to leap into action. And I'm thinking, oh God, what if I die? Oh my gosh, this is not great. Oh Jesus, I'm only an adept. My signs are not great. Oh God. And then there was, of course, the trial of the grasses. I'm just going to tell you it exists. I will not tell you anymore. But my character went through it and she survived. That's all I will say, because the trial of the grasses is also amazing. I really enjoyed that. That was probably my favorite part of the game. So anyway, yeah, so we went until Saturday night. We ran the game until about 3:30 Sunday morning, and oh my God, I was exhausted. So we had an after game party. I didn't see many people at the after game party because we were so tired. I got a glass of wine and danced around with the monster crew a little bit, but that was about it. And then I just passed out in my room and woke up the next day. We had breakfast and left, and our bus came back to the airport at about noon on Sunday. So a lot of people flew out on Sunday. Unfortunately, because of my flight schedule, my flight didn't leave until Monday, but it was a good time to rest. I was so exhausted after the game. And I would go ahead and just stop it there. So if you guys have any questions about Witcher School that you think I can answer, let me know. If you guys are interested, I highly recommend joining the Witcher School Facebook community. It's probably the best way to communicate with the team. Of course, you can go to their website, witcherschool.com. They recently had a revamp, and I think like the English section's a little bit easier to get through, so you can email them directly. The staff are very responsive, very good at getting back to you. Or if you have questions for different players, going to the Witcher School or the Witcher School International community might be a good place to start. Or of course, ask me if you have any questions, but I'll go ahead and stop it there. So thank you for watching my video, and I wish you well on the path.